Now let's start a new topic, which is functions. Okay. Till now, whatever we have written, we basically written the statements without bringing any notion of function. Okay. But in reality, you need to write several thousands lines of codes in a big project. That we need to write a code that is several thousands of lines. Not only you got your team members altogether. So there, to make it more organized, or to make your code more and more organized, you need to divide the entire job into small subtasks. Okay, and then write a function or write functions corresponding to small subtasks. Okay, and whenever you want to conduct that task, you call that function. Okay? So you basically divide your entire operation space into different small subtasks. Write functions for each and every subtask, and whenever you want to conduct that function, you call that function. That is a more organized way of writing a very large code, and that's how you need to write in a professional program. So let's learn very basics of functions today. So let's start with a function that is going to calculate the volume of a cube. Okay, you are writing a function that will calculate the volume of a cube. So let's volume of. Okay, so I need to write a function that is going to calculate cube volume. So for calculating a volume of a cube, what do you need? You need the length of the side, right? Volume of a cube is the side length cube, right? So you need the side length. Okay. So the syntax is define your function name and the parameters and the variables that you need to pass to this function. Okay, that's it. This is the function definition. And then it is going to calculate the volume equal to side length cube. Cube means to the power 3. Okay, you know how to write to the power 5, right? So volume equal to side length cube, and then this function will calculate this, and then we will return the. Okay, that's it. So that means this function will take this variable as an argument. That means it is going to take side length, will calculate side length cube, and then will return the value. Every function will take something, will do something, and then will return something. Okay, all right. Okay, I mean, returning something is optional. You can taking something is optional, correct? But what I'm saying is that every function is going to conduct some function. That's how the name functions, right? So it is going to do something, and optionally it is going to return something. Okay. All right. So let's see. So I have written this function. Now, if I run this, let me just edit the configuration. Volume of cube. So if I run this, there will be no output. Okay, because I didn't call this function. Even if you print something, print volume, you see that there will be no output because this is a function that I have defined. I have never called that function. Until as I'm calling that function, this function will not get executed. So for that, I need to call it from somewhere. So cube volume, say side length 10. All right, and this I am storing at say R1. So now it is going to print 1000. Okay, so if I just define a function, it will not get called. Whenever I am calling it from outside this function, then only it will get called. Okay. So instead of printing over here, I can print the volume of the volume of the queue is 1000. Correct? Okay. Now, what is the advantage of writing the function? Function makes things more organized, but not only that. If you write a function once, you can reuse it several times with different side length. Okay, so I can just reuse it. I can find out the volume of the cube if my side length is 5. So the volume of Q1 is R1, the volume of Q2 is, okay. So here if I run it, Q1 is 10,000, Q2 is 5, Q is 120. So that means the function is not only making it more organized, I can reuse the function. So if I want to reuse it, say 20 times, I do not need to write the same thing 20 times. I basically need to call it 20 times with different value. That's it. That's the very important advantage of writing functions. It provides a modular way of writing a program. You write your function and then you call it whenever or from wherever you need. Okay. All right. Now, in many other programming language like C, Java, there is a concept of main function. Okay, main function means the function that is going to be the start of your execution. Okay, so in Python, that is you do not necessarily need to use main. That's the use of main is optional. But if you want, you basically can write define main. Okay. And inside main, you can write on this. Okay. So basically, main is a function. From this function, you are calling another function. So main is your main function, and from your main functions, you are calling other functions. Okay. If you run it now, also it is not going to print anything because now all these functions are inside main, and I didn't call main. Okay. So if I want to execute this cube volume, I need to call main from somewhere. Okay. So now it will get executed. That means here you are calling main function. So the control is going over here. And inside this, you are calling cube volume. So the control is going over here. It is calculating cube volume with 10, returning the value. Then you are again calling cube volume with side length 5. The control is going over here, and then it is going to return the volume, and then it is going to be printed. Okay, so that's how you can basically write a chain of function. Here, one function is inside another function. Clear to everyone?
Does the function that you want to put underneath another function have to be running before it in the lines of code?
I'm coming to that. That's a good point. I'm coming to that. Okay. So here I'm calling cube volume function from main. That means this function is called calling function, and this function is called called function. If I write it with respect to this function, with respect to main is a calling function because main is calling, and the function that it is calling is basically the called function. Okay. Now your friend has brought up a very interesting point. That suppose I am writing is, just remove this line. Suppose I am writing the definition of cube volume after main. What will happen? Here also it is working perfectly. Okay. Suppose I am calling main before main, then it will be a trouble. Okay, because at this point it doesn't know what main is. So you are calling that function. Okay, but there is no definition. All right. So main cannot be, the function that you are calling cannot be called before the definition. Okay. The definition you can alternate because as I said that whenever you are writing definition queue follow or writing definition main, that means nothing will get executed. Whenever you are calling this function, then only the execution will start. And when the execution will start, the control will go over here. From here, it is going to call this function and things will get repeated. Okay. So this is the point of execution. So at the point of execution cannot be called before that function. So similar to that, I cannot call queue_follow before this definition. Okay. So if suppose I want to write queue_follow over here, this will give you an error. Okay. Because here you are calling queue_follow that has not been defined at this point. All right. Okay. Now here we have seen that these functions are returning some value. Here it is returning a value. Okay. Now there are some functions that may not return anything. Okay. Let's see. So function without return. Okay. So here it is taking some value. It is taking side length and then returning the function. Okay. The main function is not taking anything, and it is also not returning anything. Okay. Main function is not taking anything. It is not returning anything. So similarly, you can write a function that is going to print something. Say define print something. It is not taking anything and it is not returning. It is simply printing, say hello. Okay. So function without return value. Okay. So if I run it, it is not going to print anything because I didn't call that function. So print something is going to print hello. So this function is not taking any argument or any parameters. It is not returning any parameters. Okay. All right. Now let's write a function called box string. Okay. So let's see what this function does. It's a very interesting function. Box string means suppose you are passing a string, say Python. Box string means it is going to take this string and will print a box outside or around this string. Okay, it is going to take this string, it is going to print a box around this string. Let's see how this works. So now it is showing red underline because I didn't define it. Okay. So let's define the box string function. And then it is taking one string. So let's call it content. So whatever the content is, it is going to draw a box around this. Okay. So let's see. So print. Okay. First, let's calculate the length of the string. I know how to calculate the length of the string, length of contents. Print dash n+2 number of times. Okay, print dash n+2 number of times. All right. So in the string space, multiplying the star means it is a repetition operator. Right. So that means dash will be repeated n+2 number of times. Okay. Why n+2? I'm coming in a minute. And then I am printing this concatenated with the contents, concatenated with this. And then again I am printing this n+2 number of times. Okay. So let's see what does this print. So we'll see that it is printing Python programming, but around Python programming it is printing a box. Right. That's how the name box string is. Box string means it is going to print this string, whatever you are going to pass. Python programming is fun. Okay, whatever string you are going to pass, it is going to print this string, and around this string it is going to print a box. Clear? So it is first calculating the length, and then it is repeating dash n plus 2 number of times. Why? Because n number of times for this many characters, and then in addition to that there are 2 more characters. So total n plus 2 number of times it is printing at the top as well as at the bottom, and then in this line it is printing this concatenated by contents concatenated by this. Okay, instead of this you can print this line. Okay, what if I do not pass anything, or I pass an empty string? What will happen? Either you will get a box like this, otherwise you can put a condition that if n equal to 0, return. That means here you are returning nothing. Okay, you are basically returning from the function. Here you are returning the volume or something. Here you are basically returning from the function. Okay, so if n equal to 0, don't do anything, just return from the function. In that case, if you run it, you will simply print something, and then will do nothing. Okay, so optionally you can do this statement. This statement means if there is nothing in the string, if you do not pass any string, it is not going to do anything. It is simply going to return. If you pass a valid string, then only it will print a box around the string. Okay, so in these examples I have basically, so for let's take this example, you follow. I have taken one parameter and I have returned one parameter. But in general, you can take n number of parameters as the input, return n number of parameters also. Okay, so let's practice one example. Say you want to calculate tax. Calculation. Okay, want to calculate your tax. So you are defining a function add tax. Okay, so for calculating the tax of an item, okay, you went to a shop, you have bought something, you want to check how much tax will be added. So what do you need? What information do you need to calculate a tax? You need the price, and then you need the rate. Then only you can calculate how much you need to pay for the tax. So you need 2 parameters, the price and the rate. Okay. That's it. So this is my function definition, and then I can calculate my tax is nothing but price multiplied by rate divided by 100. Right. Rate is in percentage. So that means my price is going to be price plus tax. The total price is going to be price plus tax, and then I am returning my total price, and if I want to return the tax amount, I can return that also. So in this function I am taking 2 arguments, price and rate. I am returning a modified price, okay, and then another additional argument which is tax. So here I am taking 2 arguments, I am returning, or I am taking 2 parameters, I am returning 2 parameters. Okay, in general you can take n number of parameters, you can return n number of parameters separated by comma. Clear? Okay, let's say price equal to say 10, add tax, price, and then your rate is say 7.5%. Okay. So whatever values are going to be returned needs to be stored inside a square bracket. Okay, so here I am saying the modified price or final price, and then my tax amount. Okay, so whatever values are going to be returned should be written inside the square bracket. Okay, If the return value is just 1 or it is just returning a single value, then you can simply write one variable equal to this. If it is returning multiple variables, then you need to put it inside two square bracket. Okay, and then you can print final price and tax. Okay, so final price equal to equal to this. Okay, so I need to edit the configuration. Okay, so here it is showing that tax 0.75 is added, so your final price is 10.7. So it is true, right? Your price is 10, you are taking 7.5%, so total price is 10.7. Okay. So in today's class, we are going to start with recursive function. Okay. So recursion are a special type of functions. All right. So what is recursion or what is recursive functions? Recursive functions are the functions that calls itself. Okay. So what does this mean? So suppose you want to calculate n factorial. Okay. So what is n factorial? N factorial equal to n into n minus 1 into n minus 2 dot 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 up to 3, 2, 1, right? So I can also write that this is equal to n into n minus 1 factorial, right? Correct. And similarly, n minus 1 I can write as n minus 1 multiplied by n minus 2 factorial. Okay. And in this way, if I keep expanding, this, then I will get n multiplied by n minus 1 multiplied by n minus 2 multiplied by n minus 3 multiplied by dot 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 3, 2, 1 multiplied by 0 factorial. Okay. And what is 0 factorial? 0 factorial is equal to 1. Okay. So then you will get n multiplied by n minus 1 multiplied by n minus 2 multiplied by 3, 2. Okay. So here you can see that n factorial is calling n minus 1 factorial, n minus 1 factorial is calling n minus 2 factorial, which is calling n minus 3 factorial, and in this way ultimately you are reaching at 0 factorial, which is returning 1. Okay, so this will be multiplied by 1, something like that. Okay, so here we can see that factorial n is calling factorial of n minus 1, which is calling factorial of n minus 2. So one function is calling the same function. Okay, if I write it in the form of a function, that is a function factorial of n, then we can see that this is calling factorial of n minus 1. Okay, here I am writing the same thing but in a function format. Okay, suppose factorial of n fact is the function, that is taking n and returning the factorial of n. So factorial of n is calling factorial of n minus 1, which is calling factorial of n minus 2, and in this way this process is going on. Okay, so I can basically write the same thing in the form of a function, and that's why this is a recursive function. Recursive function is a function that calls itself. Okay, all right, so let's write a recursive function for calculating the factorial of a number n. Okay, so let me comment this discussion. Let's write a recursive function called factorial that takes n and then returns the factorial of that number. Okay, and here I'm going to use the recursive implementation of factorial function. Clear? Okay, so while writing any recursive function, you need to check two cases, or at least two cases. First case is the general case, and second case is the base case. Okay, here what is the base case? Base case means the case from which a particular value is going to be returned. Okay, so for example, here from 0 factorial is returning 1. Okay, a value is getting returned from the base case. Okay, so when n is equal to 0, this function should return a value which is 1. Okay, so that means if n equal to 0, then it will return 1. Okay, else it will return n into factorial of n minus 1. Okay, so this is the way a recursive implementation of factorial can be written. Okay, so this is the base case. As I said, this is the base case, and this is the general case. Okay, so let's see whether this function is working properly or not. So let's write n equal to factorial of, say, 5. Suppose I want to see the factorial of 5, and then let's print factorial of 5 is n. Right, so let's edit the configuration and add the path. So if I run it, it is showing that the factorial of 5 is 120. Okay, so how this 120 is coming? Let's try to elaborate. So I have called factorial of 5. So factorial of 5 has called. So whenever I am passing 5 over here, n is equal to 5. So n is not equal to 0. So this statement will get executed. So it is going to return 5 into factorial of 5 minus 1, which is 4. So this is going to return 5 into factorial of 4. Okay, now when factorial of 4 will be called, then factorial of 4 is going to return 4 into factorial of 3. So that means ultimately it is going to be 5 into 4 into factorial of 3, and factorial of 3 is going to return 3 into factorial of 2. So this is going to be 5 into 4 into 3 into factorial of 2 is going to return 2 into factorial of 1. Okay, and then factorial of 1 is going to return 1 into factorial of 0. So 5 into 4 into 3 into 2 into 1 into factorial of 0. And then factorial of 0 is going to return, So whenever I'm going to call factorial of 0, n is going to be equal to 0, so it is going to return 1. So factorial of 0 is going to return 1. So ultimately you will get 5 into 4 into 3 into 2 into 1 into 1, which is equal to 5 into 4 is 20 and 3 into 2 is 6. So 20 into 6 is 120. So ultimately you will get 120 at the end. Okay, so that's how your ultimate value is 120. So here, as we can see, that one factorial function is calling another factorial function with a different value. Okay, so that's why it is called recursive function. So instead of 5, if I put 10, so factorial of 10 is, it is showing us 3628800. So 3628800. Okay, so the same number is coming over here. All right, now let's write another very important recursive function, which is related to Fibonacci series. Okay. So let's see. So in a Fibonacci series, the sequences number is the following: 1, 1, and then all the previous numbers. So the first two numbers in a Fibonacci series are 1 and 1. All the other numbers are the summation of the previous two numbers. Okay, that means the next number is going to be the summation of the previous two numbers, which is 1 plus 1, which is 2. The next number is going to be the summation of the previous two numbers, which is 1 plus 2, which is 3. The next number is going to be the summation of these two numbers, which is 5. The next number is going to be 5 plus 3, which is 8. The next number is 8 plus 5 is 13. The next number is going to be 8 plus 13, which is 21. Okay. The next number is 13 plus 21 is 34. Okay. So in this way, this series will keep going on. Okay. So in a Fibonacci series, the first two numbers are 1. All the other numbers are the summation of the previous two numbers. Okay. Okay. So then if I ask you to write a function, write a recursive function corresponding to a Fibonacci series, okay, or write a recursive function that will return the nth number in a Fibonacci series. Okay, so I'm asking you to write a function fib, which is going to take n and will return the nth number in that series. So for example, if n is 1, it is going to return 1. Okay, if n is 5, then it is going to return the fifth number in the series, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is 5. Okay, if n is say 9, it is going to return the ninth number, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, which is 34. Okay, so how can I write this function in a recursive fashion? We know that the first two numbers are 1. That means this is the base case. So if n is less than 2, then it will return 1. So this is the base case. Alright, as I said that any recursive function consists of a base case and a general case. So you need to identify which is the base case, which is the general case. So your base case is nothing but the first, nothing but the case when n is less than equal to 2. Okay, so when n is 1 and n is 2, in both cases it is going to return 1. So n is less than equal to 2 is the base case, and the general case is yes, it is going to return the summation of the previous two numbers. Okay, previous two numbers means the fib of n minus 1 plus n minus 2, right? If I want to get the nth number, I need to add the n minus 1th number and the n minus 2th number. Okay, so this is the general case. Clear? So that's it. This entire series can be summarized in these 4 statements. Okay, let's see whether it is working properly or not. Say n equal to, suppose you want to find out the 9th number. Okay. So print n. Let me add the configuration. So 34. So 9th number is indeed 34. Okay, what is the 10th number? 10th number is 55. So 10th number is going to be 21 plus 34, which is 55 indeed. Alright. So in this way, you can find the nth number in a Fibonacci series. Okay. Alright. Now let's see how I can find the, or how I can print the first 10 numbers in a Fibonacci series. Okay. So let me modify this and write a program that is going to print the first 10 numbers. So how can I write? For I in range of 1 to 11. Okay, if I want to print the first 10 number, then the range is going to be from 1 to 11, because it's going to vary from 1 to 10, right? If I write a range of 1 to 11, that means it is going to vary from 1 to 10. Okay. Print fib of I. That's it. So you can see that it is printing, first 10 numbers in the series. Okay, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34, and 55. All right. If you want to print the first 20 numbers, this is going to give you the first 20 numbers. All right. So after the 10th number also, you can see that 34 plus 55 is 89. 55 plus 89 is 144. And in this way, the same concept is getting executed. Okay, so this is also a very useful example of recursive function. Okay, now let's see. So let me close the previous set of programs. Now let me write a program, or let me write a function that will calculate the sum of the digit of a particular number. Okay, so I'm going to first write the function in a general format, and then I'm going to convert it to a recursive function. Okay, what I am trying to do is that I'm going to take a number, say 1729, and then I'm going to write a function that is going to take this number and will return the sum of the digit of these numbers, which is 1 plus 7 plus 2 plus 9. Okay, so some digit of 1729 is supposed to be 1 plus 7 is 8, 9, 10 plus 9. So it is going to be equal to 90. Okay. I want to write a function some digit of n, which is going to take a number n, and then it is going to return the sum of the digit of that particular number. Okay, so that's how I'm trying to implement. So I'm going to implement in two different ways. First is I'm going to write a function in general format, and then I'm going to convert it to a recursive function. Okay, so let's see. So definition some digit of n, and then it is going to return the sum of the digits. Okay, so let's take a variable total equal to 0. So total is going to record the sum of each and every digit. Okay, all right, so let's take the example of 172729. Here the function needs to extract each and every digit separately, 1729 separately, and then it is going to add that particular value with total. Okay, so let's see what is the logic. while n greater than 0, I need to extract one of the digits, say digit equal to n mod 10. Okay, so when n equal to 1729, n mod 10 is going to be equal to 9, right? If I divide this number by 10, the remainder is going to be 9, so digit is going to be equal to 9. So I'm going to add that particular value with total, and then I'm going to do n equal to n integer division 10. Okay, so if I take 1729, if I take the integer division 10 of 1729, then n is going to be 172. Okay, n integer division 10 is 172. Okay, which is going to go in the next iteration. All right, and then at the end I'm going to return total. Okay. So let's see whether it is working properly or not. Then I'm going to show you step by step what's happening. Okay. Okay. Say n equal to some digit of 1729, and then I'm printing n. So I'm getting 19. Okay, so that means it is working perfectly. So what's happening? Let's try to decipher step by step. So I have called this function with n, right? So that means sorry, this function with 1729. So initially n equal to 1729, right? And total is equal to 0. Total is 0. Now let's start the loop. Okay. So first it is going to check whether 1729 is greater than 0 or not. It is indeed greater than 0. So digit is going to be 1729 mod 10. So what is 1729 mod 10? 1729 mod 10 is 9. Then I am adding digit which is 9 with total. So total is going to be equal to 9. And then n is going to be n integer division 10. So 1729 integer division 10 is 172. Now in the next iteration, n is going to be 172, which is greater than 0. So it will go inside the loop. So here digit is n mod 10. So 172 mod 10 is 2, right? So digit is going to be equal to 2. Total is total plus digit. So total was 9 plus 2 is 11. N is n integer division 10. So n was 172. Integer division 10 is 17. Next iteration, n will be 17, which is greater than 0. So it will go inside the loop. Digit is n mod 10. So 17 mod 10 is 7, which will be added with the total. So 11 plus 7 is 18. And then n equal to n integer division 10, which is 1. Okay. Now n is 1, n equal to 1 is greater than 0. So the next it will go inside the loop. So digit is going to be n mod 10, which is 1, which will be added with the total. So in total you will get 19, and n equal to 1 integer division 10 is 0. So n is going to be equal to 0. So in the next iteration, it will check whether n is greater than 0 or not, which is false. So it will come out of the loop and then will return total, which is 19. So 19 is going to get returned and will be printed over here. Okay. Now the next question is that, can I convert this function to a recursive function? So let me comment this out, and then let me write the same function, some digit of n. All right. So again, as I said, that every recursive call has a base case and a general case. Okay, so here what is the base case? The base case is when n equal to 0. Okay, so if n equal to 0 and n equal to 0, it should return 0. Else, I need to write the general case. So what is the general case? General case I can write in this way. Some digit of n integer division 10 plus n mod 10. Okay, let's see what's happening over here. Okay, base case is the scenario when n equal to 0. When n is 0, the sum of the digit is 0, so it is going to return 0. Else, I have written this line. Okay, if you know think a little bit, you will understand that this should make sense, because every call of n is returning the integer division part plus the mod part. Okay, basically I am dividing every number in two portions, the integer division portion and the mod portion, or the remainder portion. So for example, if n is 1729, it is going to return some digit of 172 plus 9. So some digit of 1729 is calling some digit of 1729, integer division 10 is 172 plus 1729 mod 10 is 9. Okay, so it is going to return some digit at 172 plus 9. Okay, so as you can see that it is dividing the number in two portions, 172 and 9. So it is extracting one of the numbers, one of the digit, and then returning some digit of the remaining digits. Okay, now once some digit will be called with n equal to 172. So 172 is going to return some digit of 172, integer division 10 is 17 plus 2. So it is going to return some digit of 17 plus 2 plus 9 will remain as it is. Okay, now again some digit will be called with n equal to 7, which is going to return some digit of 1 plus 7. So it is going to return some digit of 1 plus 7 plus 2 plus 9 will remain as it is. Okay, now some digit of 1 will return some digit of 0 plus 1. Okay, so this is going to return some digit of 0 plus 1 plus 7 plus 2 plus 9 will remain as it is, and then some digit of 0 is going to return 0. Okay, so that means you will get 0 plus 1 plus 7 plus 2 plus 9. Okay, so now we can see that all the different digits are getting added in the final stage. Okay, so 7 plus 1 is 8 plus 2 10 plus 9 is 90. So that's how, if you run this, you will get 19 again.